It's already time, and we've also formed a quorum. Now, today we're holding the meeting of the subcommittee to study the implementation of free kindergarten education. We need to elect the chairman as well as the deputy chairman. Nominations, please. Mr. Stephen Ho, I'd like to nominate Ms. Debbie Lee. Anybody seconding? Mr. Yip Kok Him seconds. Mr. Lee, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. What about other nominations? Yes, Mr. Raymond Chen. Dr. Kenneth Chen. Any seconder? Mr. Yu Kin Yun seconds. So, Dr. Chen, do you accept? Yes, I do. Is there a third nomination? No. Well, in this case, since there are no other nominations, I declare that by way of secret ballot, we're going to elect the chairman. Staff will hand out the ballot papers as well as the chalk to the members in accordance with the House rules. The candidates will be each assigned a number of candidates in the sequence of being nominated. So, candidate number 1, Debbie Lee. Candidate number 2, Kenneth Chen. The ballot papers are being handed out. One member has just walked in. Please be seated. We have to hold an election for the chairman, so please give him a ballot paper. Candidate number 1, Debbie Lee. Candidate number 2, Kenneth Chen. Number 1, Debbie Lee. Number 2, Kenneth Chen. All right, if members have all marked their ballot papers with the chalk, I'll declare that the voting procedure is now closed and the staff may no longer hand out the ballot papers. I'd like to request the staff members to collect the ballot papers. So members, please put your ballot paper into the ballot box personally. I'd like to invite Mr. Stephen Ho, who nominated Debbie Lee, to come out, and also Mr. Raymond Chen, who nominated Mr. Kenneth Chen, to come out, and they will be witnessing the opening of the ballot box and the counting of the votes. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. 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 All right, we've got the results. Mr. Lee, the first candidate, got 9 votes, and Dr. Kenneth Chen 4 votes. So Mr. Lee has been elected as the chairman of the subcommittee. Please come forward to hold the election for the deputy chairman. Members, good morning. Thank you for trusting me, and I will also pledge that in accordance with the House rules, I'll make sure that all members will have the right to speak, and I will do so when I chair the meetings. Now, Deputy Chairman, do you all confirm that we need to elect a Deputy Chairman? All right. Dr. Kenneth Chen, I nominate Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. So Dr. Chen nominates Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. Any seconder? Mr. Peter Zhang. Mr. Yip, do you accept? Yes, I do. Any other nominations? Any other nominations for the post of the Deputy Chairman? 1, 2, 3. No other nominations. Then I declare that Mr. Yip Kin Yuen has been elected uncontestedly. So he'll be the Deputy Chairman of the subcommittee to study the implementation of free kindergarten education. So Mr. Yip, please come forward so that we chair the meeting together. Members, thank you for giving your support to us. We have to deal with some housekeeping matters. First of all, the meeting schedules. The Secretariat has already checked the availability of the venues. We suggest that we should have it at 11 o'clock. Is that right? Sorry about that. Please take a look of Appendix 2. The clerk has made a lot of effort to come up with proposed meeting dates. I suggest that we follow the general rule, and that is we have 1 meeting per month as the initial work plan. The Secretariat in Appendix 2 have already set out the proposed dates of the meetings as well as the time. Any comments? Mrs. Virginia Yip. Madam Chair, I'm afraid I have to go back to check my diary. We'll try our best to come because everybody has got a lot of meetings to go to. If you do not have any specific comments, then I'll invite the clerk to send out notice of meetings to invite your comments. Please try as much as possible to reserve the time slots for our meetings. Next, we have to talk about the issues for our next meeting. For the paper issued by the Secretariat for this meeting, in Appendix 1, you'll find the major subjects to be studied. For the next meeting, as everybody knows that for the topic of 15 years free education, it is being studied by a committee set up by the administration. So would you agree with me that we invite the administration as well as the members of that committee to report to us about their progress, and after that we will try to decide on the topics to be followed up? What do you say, Mrs. Regina Yip? I think the subjects proposed are very much operational in nature. But then what about the objectives of having free education for kindergarten? Does it mean that parents don't want to pay at all, or do they want to have quality and more equal opportunities? As currently the variation is great, and then in some districts it seems that there are not enough school places. What is the objective? There are parents could say that they don't mind paying the fees. Say, for example, in the North District, they haven't got sufficient places, while others are saying that the kindergarten education quality varies and they don't want to lose out right from the beginning. Dr. Kenneth Chin, other than inviting officials as well as members of the committee chaired by Mr. Moses Zhang to answer our questions, to report their progress to us, I believe that there are two topics that should be covered by the administration ASAP. First of all, the data should be disclosed as much and as early as possible. I think quite unlike myself and Mr. Yip Yun, who are familiar with the topic, we are aware of the numbers involved, but I think it's better to have them available to facilitate other members. We need to hold a public hearing as well. We have decided to set up the subcommittee. This is because at the panel meetings, we try to respond to the aspirations of the parents, also the educational sector. We want to have a subcommittee to monitor the implementation of free kindergarten education. As you know, that for the committee under Mr. Moses Zhang, it is expected that towards the end of this year or beginning of next year, they're going to finish with the draft of their report, and then that will go to the administration for decision. So I just hope that it's better for us to listen to the views of the parents as well as other related groups, and then we'll have our own discussion. Deputy Chair, I echo what he said. We are sort of working in tandem with the Committee on 15-year free education. So we have to be made aware of their progress, and then before they write their draft report, perhaps we should also give them our views. We would be interested in finding out about their progress. It will be better for the interaction between ourselves and that committee. Otherwise, we may cover a lot of topics, and yet they may have already finished with their own discussion and have already finalized their draft report, and then that won't be good. So it's better for us to find out more about their progress, and then we can sort of tie in with their work. And I also believe that it's better for us to rely more on public hearings to collect public views. Currently, there are criticisms against the committee, saying that they aren't having a high degree of transparency. So perhaps this will afford a very good forum. This will be the platform for the stakeholders to come and air their views. As to the major subjects to be studied in Appendix 1, I think it's a very good job done by the Secretariat. I just want to add two more points. I think the sector would like to look at the following two areas as well. First of all, research and development in relation to free education for 15 years, in particular free kindergarten education. The second point is about parent education, so we want to talk about that. And of course, we have to prioritize the various areas that has to be taken up at a later stage. Other members, Mr. Shatlai Him, what about quality of kindergarten teachers as well as their training? I think that's also very important. Now, if we want to have free education, lasting for 15 years. We have to find out whether we have got a sufficient supply of qualified teachers. We'll be interested to know about the academic qualifications.
Helena Wong. Madam Chair, as far as I understand it, I think the government's committee is also conducting a consultancy study on how they can introduce a 15-year free education. And I think that report will be released shortly by December. So I think we should also consider inviting the expert group or the consultants to come to the subcommittee to brief us on the progress that has been made so far. We hope that before finalizing their report in December, the subcommittee would be able to give its input to the expert or the consultants. And after the release of the report, we also hope that the experts can come and discuss with us so that there can be a dialogue, because as to how the administration is going to propose how the 15-year free education can be introduced, they will also have to base the decision on the recommendation of the experts or the consultants. So we will have to exchange views with them. Mr. Tommy Cheung, well, within such a short space of time, how much do our members expect to achieve? Because Moses Chang's group has spent more than a year and a half on this, and they have different working groups comprising more than 100 people, and they are nearing the end of their work. And as far as I understand it, in March, they are going to come out to tell us exactly what the committee thinks with regard to 15-year free education. But then if we also have to work on teacher qualification as suggested by Abraham Sheikh, and whether or not there are sufficient funds for different districts to do this and so on. But then looking at this subcommittee apparently is going to wrap up its work by May next year. Am I right? Because apparently what's going to happen is that by March next year they'll be throwing out the plan or the proposal, and then in May or so they may have to come to this council for funding. So in any case, they will have to get more funds in order to do it. So what do members think? Well, this is a very broad subject. For example, do we have to provide rent subsidy? And if we provide rent subsidy, then how about people living in the new territories? What about people living in Hong Kong and Kowloon? And if we were to discuss the entire issue of early childhood education, whether or not it's about teacher qualification, do we have to talk about the articulation or the letter or whatever? So my views and other members' views might be very different. So when we prepare our report, are we trying to influence the report to be prepared by Moses Chang? And if we were to do it, then we should not just go by the majority rule, so that my view would be excluded or just put as a sideline or a minority view. I don't know how it's to be treated. But then if we were to do as much as we ideally think, then honestly it's a bit too late. And if we want to cover that many things, then if you just have a 2-hour meeting once every month, then it's like having me, Tommy Cheung, say what I just said. So there would be there would be a limitation as to how much we can do. Yes, honestly, we don't have a lot of time, and I've noted members' comments just now. I think we will all agree that we should invite the administration and also Moses Chang's committee's representatives to come and tell us the progress that has been made so far, and we will also like to invite them to come as suggested by Regina Ip. It's like what is suggested under A, that is about the scope of services and also the types of KGs to be covered under 3 KG education. So we hope that the report to be released by Moses Chang's group will be able to represent or reflect the views of different quarters of the community. In response to Abraham Sheikh's suggestion, well, when Mr. Moses Chang come and report to us on the progress of team's work. We would also be asking him more about teachers, because in the list that we have proposed, we would be looking at teacher professionalism, development of a qualification and salary framework, and also a proper career and advancement path, etc. So, with regard to the public hearing, I think we will set out to do these, and then we'll arrange for a public hearing to be held. Mrs. Regina Ip, thank you, Madam Chair. Under A, I'd like to add in the objectives of free KG education, because for early childhood education's objectives, I think many people think that they are objective, but then why? Many people think that they are very important, but then why do they have to be free of charge altogether? Dr. Kenneth Chan, I think Mr. Tommy Chang has shared with us his sentiments from the bottom of his heart. So don't worry, because there are many fools out there like him. And I think for rent subsidy, it's not something that we just pluck out from thin air for those who are informed. In fact, the administration does provide a lot of subsidies, both in Hong Kong, Kowloon, and the New Territories. That's why we have to set out everything, because very shortly you'll be able to find out that this is not just a castle in the air. We have to introduce free education by way of funding and resources. And of course, we also have to discuss the objectives, because in OECD countries, there is a consensus amongst them that is more resources should be put in kindergarten or childhood education, and about 1% of GDP should be put in there. And therefore, we would also have to find out from the administration what is vision about early childhood education. So if that is the consensus of OECD countries, we will also have to find out more from the administration, because I'm concerned that Mr. C.Y. Leung might not be honoring his promise. Mr. Peter Jiang, I think nobody is saying that there are things that can be discussed, others that cannot be discussed. We might be starting a little late, but then no one would like to be late. It's just a question of timing. So, before March, is it possible that we don't necessarily have to have just one meeting per month? Well, the Secretariat may have to work on this. We may have to be prepared to have 2 meetings a month before March. We may also have to convene special meetings to talk to different stakeholders, instead of adhering to these fixed dates or schedules. Because according to the schedule for the next 3 months, if these are meetings that would respond to the report to be released next March, that might not be adequate. Yes, even after the release of the report, it doesn't mean that we will just stop there. We can continue to discuss that. But then I'm sure different stakeholders would also like to influence the way the report is to be drafted rather than the administration. So I suggest that before March, we should all be prepared that we might have to have more meetings. Helena Wong? Madam Chair, I agree with what some members suggested just now. That is on the schedule. If we set aside 2 hours a month for that, then there would be a lack of flexibility. I suggest that we should say that we will schedule at least 2 hours meeting every month, so that there would be more flexibility for the chair. When necessary, we can hold more than 1 meeting a month, because there is no reason why we should be tying our own hands, unless people think that we are trying to paralyze the work of the subcommittee so that it will not be able to come up with constructive suggestions or proposals. So I don't see why we should be tying our own hands by saying that we can only have a 2-hour meeting every month. And also, other than having to have exchange with our counterpart on the administration on this issue, I also said that we would also have to give an input to Mr. Moses Chang's committee. So my suggestion is we should also have communication with the experts in that committee. Mr. Tommy Chang, I am not restricting any members' expression of their views, but then I was just saying that what are we trying to do? And we are targeting the 15-year education report. Then, given the limited time that we have to know what we are doing. I don't really mind having more meetings, even though I do mind that we are doing that for having meetings' sake. In particular, for special meetings, there are simply too many. So my suggestion is, if we were to have meetings and if we want to make use of the time in a very cost-effective manner, then looking at the schedule ahead is really very bad, because if we want to have more meetings, we may have to start work at 6:30 in the morning. But then what about our staff, our secretaries and secretariat staff? They won't be able to go back home for a sleep, and they will have to start very early in the morning. So where can we find a time slot for meetings? Because we are actually actually all Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays have been scheduled for meetings. So honestly, they should not be called the opposition camp. They are actually the paralyzing party, because they are actually paralyzing the operation of this council. So don't say that there are people who are trying to paralyze the work of the subcommittee. Well, Tommy Chow never wants to paralyze anything. So please think about yourselves. Have you paralyzed the work of anything in this council before accusing me of paralyzing the work of this subcommittee? Mr. Ip Kin Yuen, well, some members talk about how we can deal with the issues within the limited time. So may I make the following suggestion? Well, before Mr. Moses Chang's group releases its report, there is very limited time to go for us to discuss these issues. Should we be focusing on the more important issues that the stakeholders are more concerned about? Well, if you look at the list on Appendix 1, items A to E would be the issues that we are most concerned about, and they are also the most controversial ones. And therefore, I'm sure the group under Moses Chair would also be looking into them. For example, the objectives of free KG education, and also whether there should be half-day, whole-day, or long whole-day KGs, and how they should be supported, and also teacher professionalism and manpower requirement, and so on. So there might be 4 main themes that we might need to focus on in the next few months, and we would also have to invite more stakeholders from the sector to share with us their views, and the committee can also tell us on the progress that has been made so far, and what they are most concerned about. Okay, thank you for your comments. So summarizing what's been just said, I'll be discussing with the Vice Chairman as to what needs to be done. Well, in simple terms, we'll be inviting the administration and Mr. Moses Chang's group to come and discuss with us, and also Ms. Helena Wong also suggested the experts groups which should also be invited to come and talk to us. All right. If there are no other issues that members would like to take up, then I'll adjourn the first meeting of the subcommittee, and date of next meeting, we'll issue further notice to confirm the date and time with members.